Hi, I'm McClean, clinical psychologist with Acquired Brain Injury Ireland. When I was growing up in Tipperary, I was told that talking to yourself was the first sign of madness. But actually, what we say to ourselves and about brain injury really matters. And navigating something really difficult or challenging, adjusting to brain injury, for example, requires an ability to talk with ourselves skillfully. It requires an ability to talk with ourselves with emotional literacy. There's a tree on a hillside in County Mayo, and the tree is constantly exposed to wind and storm, so the tree has had to grow in a new and interesting way to accommodate the circumstances that it's found itself in. And people with brain injury know, perhaps as much as anybody else in life, that life does not go in straight lines, that life does not go the way we expect or the way we hope, and that the real success of our lives is not when things are going well, but how we respond to ourselves when we meet adversity. Recently, I did a straw poll of people who attend our Zoom groups. And I asked people what are the positive changes that they've seen as a result of brain injury. And the kinds of things that people said were, I could have died, I have a second chance at life, things could be worse, there's people worse off than me. I have, since my brain injury, more compassion for others. People said I've changed my priorities about what's important in life. I'm able to do better things with my life. I can appreciate every day better than I did before my injury. I remember a 22-year-old man that I met about 1 year after his brain injury in a motorcycle accident. Before his accident, he had life at his feet, his career was going well, he was a sociable man with great friendships. And since his brain injury, he's had to learn to walk and talk again. And I remember he said to me, I think I did grow up emotionally faster than a lot of my friends, but I don't think this is a bad thing. I learned to do things I never needed to do before. I learned that life does not always go the way you expect it to. Having to deal with the unexpected makes you a stronger person. It makes you see things for what they really are, not just how they appear on the surface. Now I see that life is short and I don't want to waste any time. And I think if you were the parents of that young man, you would be really, really proud of what he has achieved. Not despite brain injury, but actually because of it. I grew up learning that storms make trees take deeper roots, and I always assumed that these were the words of some wise Greek philosopher. But in fact, it's the American philosopher Dolly Parton. Because when we're no longer able to change our situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. And as you see from the results of the survey, many people in recovery from brain injury take up this challenge. But we don't wake up one day as a butterfly. It takes growth. A real Greek philosopher, Aeschylus, said, "He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain, which cannot forget, falls drop by drop upon the heart until in our despair and against our will comes wisdom to us." And so growth can happen when we confront adversity in life, and it goes hand in hand with the anxiety and the sadness and the pain. And this is what in Acquired Brain Injury Ireland we call the heroic journey. If every step is difficult, if every breath is hard, if I'm confronted with doubt and despair, then the story I have to tell myself about myself is indeed a heroic one. Because there are two arrows in life. The first arrow is adversity. It's old age, it's illness, it's injury, it's accident. It's the misfortunate things that happen to us in our lives. And that's the first arrow. The first arrow is regrettably inevitable. There's nothing we can do to stop adversity coming to our door. It comes to every door. The second arrow, though, is the one that we fire at ourselves. It's when we say, I don't like this. This is not the way things should be. It's not fair. Why is this happening to me? I can't cope. I can't bear it. This proves that I'm not a good person. This proves I'm not a lovable person. This proves that I'm stupid. In adjusting to brain injury, it's very important that we have an opportunity to think through and talk through how we fire the second arrow at ourselves. Because the second arrow is optional. If the first arrow is pain, the second arrow is suffering. So after the initial outcry, the shock and the numbness that comes with a sudden adverse event like brain injury, the skill we require more than any is the skill of emotional literacy. So much of our time in education is spent on cognitive literacy, reading and writing and so on, but so little of our time is spent learning what is an emotion. The idea that it arises in response to a situation, that it's a thought, that it's a feeling, that it's a set of body sensations, and that it's a way of acting. And if we can understand the wiring diagram for our emotion, then we can learn to diffuse the emotional bombs of sadness or despair or anxiety or anger. And so we can prevent emotions from hijacking us and hijacking our relationships and damaging the trajectory of our recovery. One of the skills of emotional literacy is to be able to catch the way we're thinking about our situation, to catch the way we're thinking about ourselves, or indeed the way we're thinking about our brain injury, and to be able to change this. So to be able to ask myself, am I falling into a thinking trap? Am I overestimating danger? Am I generalizing or catastrophizing? Is this a hassle or is it a horror in my life? Because the way that we talk to ourselves really matters. Often, we would never allow another person to be spoken to in a way that we speak to ourselves. We can be so critical and so harsh in our conversations with ourselves. A very important component of emotion is to understand what's happening in the body and the physical reactions to our situations. And that's how so much emotion is resolved. And rather than kind of living from the neck up, if we're experiencing emotion, one of the things that's really helpful is to go down into the body and sit with that and become familiar with it and recognize it. One of the things we teach, for example, is 7-11 breathing. Breathing in for 7 seconds and breathing out for 11. Because it's not possible to have an anxiety attack, for example, when we're breathing slowly. Recovery from brain injury involves making sure that we're looking after the body. And one of the greatest gifts we can give to the body is making sure it's getting enough regular sleep. And of course, many people in recovery from brain injury thrive when they're in good fatigue management. And it usually involves taking a therapeutic rest in the middle of the day. So it helps if I'm talking to somebody who's a good listener, somebody who believes in me, and somebody who allows me to express what I'm feeling, rather than acting out my emotions. There's a lovely poem by a 13th century Persian poet, Rumi, who says that the human heart is like a guest house. Every morning there's a new emotion. It could be a joy, a depression, a meanness. And every morning there's a new feeling available to us. And Rumi says, welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows that threaten to sweep our house of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably, because who knows, each emotion may be clearing us out for some new delight. And the important point about that is that if I block an emotion, if I say, I can't cope with this sadness, I can't allow this anger to come into my heart, if we keep it at the door, it's actually blocking the doorway for all other feelings too. So the real skill, I guess, of emotional literacy is to be able to acknowledge and allow in an unpleasant emotion, and to try and sit with it, to try and breathe in slowly, and treat the emotion tenderly, so that it can do its work and we can process it, and then it clears out and makes way for new feeling. And I guess the point of this story is, we might think that we know the true meaning of our lives. Before we meet adversity, we might think, well, life goes in the direction that I set for it, and it goes according to my plans. But actually, we have no idea of the true purpose of our lives. And it's people with brain injury who have confronted adversity that have actually the opportunity to grow a deeper appreciation of what life means. To know that what's important is our relationships with others, and to appreciate what's important in the new possibilities that change might bring.